Center consoles were all boring until 2003 when the Volvo S40 and V50 introduced Volvo's minimalist waterfall center stack. With the buttons and controls placed on a panel just 2 inches thick, it gave off this really cool free-floating effect, really unlike anything that had been done before. This panel could be had in aluminium, wood, or even piano black finishes. But those are boring. Water is famously see-through, and these simply aren't. Enter Iced Aqua. Available when buying your Volvo, Iced Aqua was an optional extra replacing the center console and the door pull handles with this see-through plastic, akin to some famous tech products from the 90s. The original iMac or the Game Boy Color, for example, which famously also utilized this unique look. The problem with that though is that both of those defining examples were discontinued in March of 2003. The Volvos went on sale months after that, and by that time this trend was clearly old news. Even then, it wasn't until 2007 that Volvo finally discontinued this option. It would have probably paired well with something like the new Beetle or a Scion XB, but not with a sensible Volvo. So few customers chose this option that it has led some to believe it was simply a marketing stunt, and that no cars were ever actually sold wearing Iced Aqua panels. But no, this was available to all, despite being weird. When I say features, I'm talking about completely normal elements, be it optional extras or stock features, that have been elevated in a way or two that they're not completely ignorable. Weird does not in any way mean bad. Opel's built-in bicycle carrier system, FlexFix, was very useful, but weird. I hope you understand. As an advisory, I do have to say off the top we won't be looking at any French cars here, those would just be too easy of a target. Instead, let's go to Italy. The Alfa Romeo 90 was an otherwise ordinary looking thing, that being an intentional choice as it was meant to be a more luxurious executive car compared to the sportier but similarly priced and similarly sized Alfa 75. Inside though, a different story was told. You had a U-shaped handbrake, a Knight Rider overhead console, the top trim had these diagonal digital gauges, all lovely, lovely stuff. But best of all, you could option it to have a document box below the regular glove box. A briefcase. It was a briefcase you could take out and, well, use. Lockable, obviously. These days, whenever one of these portable glove boxes pops up for sale, they can go for thousands of euros. For any Americans, that's thousands of dollars. It was a rare option on an even rarer car, as the Alfa 90 was discontinued after just 3 years in 1987. I think this is the appropriate time to mention that the name 90 was chosen because Alfa Romeo envisioned this car to remain on sale until the 90s. Hey, speaking of the 90s, the Opel Vauxhall Chevy Holden Astra G is a car from the 90s. You see, when I was a small boy, we were driving behind an Astra G, and I was sure that it was a sedan. But my dad said no, that's not a sedan, it's a hatchback. I asked him, how do you know it's a hatch? Looks like a sedan rear end to me. Well, he told me hatchbacks have rear wipers, sedans do not. Then I asked him why don't sedans have wipers at the rear, and he did not know what to say to me. In the 2 weeks since then, we found out there have been saloon cars offered with rear wipers. WRX STIs in Japan, for example. Or the old Mazda 323, which was even offered in markets like Europe and Australia with these rear wipers. But none of these matter, because the Lancia Flaminia Berlina outdid all of them decades earlier. Sure, it was not offered with a rear wiper. It was offered with 4 of them! 2 on the outside, because the rear window was just too wide and short for a single one, and 2 on the inside for getting rid of interior condensation. In total, that's 6 wipers spread across the car. Let's come back down to earth now for something a little more simplistic. Some original Dodge Neons came with actual neon keys that would glow in the dark, but they didn't return when the Neon was updated in 1999, which is a shame. I feel Dodge could have done more of these name-inspired keys. Just imagine what the Dodge Caliber could have had. Regardless, circling back to model switchovers, one of these involved Nissan, with the midsize Stanza being replaced in North America with the all-new Altima in 1992 for the 93 model year. Nissan had never succeeded in this important segment, and this new model, specifically designed for America, was their attempt to change previous misfortunes. But perhaps as a way to ease the transition from one nameplate to another, the first model year cars would have the full legal government name of Nissan Stanza Altima. Although the car would be referred to as just the Altima in ads and marketing materials, government regulations still apparently required Nissan to include the Stanza name somewhere on the vehicle. So, 93 model year Altimas have the faintest of faint, little tiny, barely noticeable Stanza stickers on the rear trunks, right next to the massive Altima lettering. That's all there is to it, just a tiny sticker. I think I've officially hit rock bottom. Here's a factory-built machine gun holder for the VW Passat, yeah! This was actually designed and built by Volkswagen to house machine guns! We're back in business, baby! Hell yeah! Even better, you know what Mitsubishi actually genuinely called the hood bumps on Eclipses? Their name is Power Bulge! Yes! 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 What do 60s Pontiacs and the Zaporozhets Tavria have in common? Trick question, they're identical. If you want to see where I'm going with this, let's begin with Pontiac. In the early 60s, 8-lug wheel setups became an option on full-size models, a design where these 8 lugs attached the steel outer rim to the finned aluminum brake drum, which by default acted as the middle of the wheel. This right here is the brake drum sticking out, exposed to the air, which is also an explanation why this solution existed in the first place. You know drum brakes, their number one problem is heat. As Al Pacino said in the movie, any good braking power evaporates as brake fade sets in under heavy use. This design exposes the brakes to direct airflow, which allows for much better cooling as the heat dissipates more efficiently. That means it brakes better. As disc brakes became more common, this option was eventually discontinued on Pontiacs, but the basic idea didn't disappear quite yet, as it was a feature that was seen on cars before and after Pontiac played around with it. One example, the SAS Tavria, which was built up until the late 2000s like this. Also, it's got a gear shift pattern where 5th gear is right and down, leaving it right next to 4th gear. This was a novel idea for its time, and I love seeing these kinds of attempts at solutions to poor situations. A much more recent example might include the Geely Icon and its intelligent air purification system, specifically designed to filter out the COVID-19 virus. Remember that it's a bold move to use the coronavirus as part of a selling point. An even bolder one to name it after its own logo. What we've seen in recent years is the fall of optional extras and the rise of optional packages, bundling multiple features together in a comfort pack or a technology pack. As these options are usually not available on their own and can only be acquired when choosing the full optional package, it allows automakers to reduce the complexity of the manufacturing process, and this makes shareholders very happy. When you buy a new car, you have to consider trim levels, singular optional extras, and optional packages, and it's all so complicated. Well, all of this could be avoided if you just offered fewer options, and Lada was the one to figure this out years ago. If you were buying a Lada Niva in the UK and wanted to splurge some more money, there was one single option available: a snowplow. That's not even funny, that is a very useful thing. But hey, you know what isn't a very useful thing? Join the Corsicar membership program today! And thank you to all of our new Corsa members. Kishshot, Koralik, AM, Aiden T06, The Super Saiyan, Driver 50, Blondie S, Android RO Gamer, Luciano Capocci, Chackum25, Quacked Up, Fabio 182, my BFF, Conrad Dietrich, Pace Car, Adam, David Sue, Spencer Hamilton, Edward Sovanto, Umbrellas Peyton, P-Pal, Lucas William, Bry, Atanon, Mick the Small, The Dodozo, Shirtless Rusty, Andy Razor, Kiet Nguyen, Manny Sans Titre, Carolux, Emrod, Marcel, Ernestus, Edward Todd, Hoyayu Ilsank, Haruna, Thanovo, Ibu Rusniu, Papa Eki, New Stages 95, Yang, Niels Ladd, CS Worth, Nico, Tivensi, Sammy B, Vlad Panchenko, Login JP, Lord Comic Sans, Glams Flop, Kuruma Itzko, Will Eagleston, Akil Paradwach, Eduardo, Oberoffizier, Glorious Gozik, Chase S, 20 Intensity 48, Donut Driver, Nolan C, Bamset Cam, Pavel, Ibrahim Humpty, Burkada Flaren, What the Flying Hell, William Conway Hyde, Octo Larry, Ollie T, Horseman, Ben Laws, Abdul Aziz, Lord Grace, Paul Glambitza, Eran Choshkun, Dagi Khan, Christoph Waltz, Crunchy Latte, Mateus, Capital B, Zephyr Lover, Gavin Byrne, Gabriel Guidera, Verstappen Babe, Juan Camilo, and Napkin.